Forspoken, one of the most unceremonious AAA game releases in recent memory. Looking at the Metascore right now, it's sitting at 64% from 119 reviews, and the user score is faring worse at a 3.4. Generally, the feedback is along the lines of content is underwhelming, its RPG systems are weak, and its visuals are less advanced and advertise it's a potential that is largely unrealized. Weak dialogue, much too short story, soulless open world full of repetitive checklist activities. And one of the lowest scores here sits at a mere 20, and it reads right here, uncomfortably poorly written dialogue, a giant open world of cardboard, and struggling to find meh action and combat. Not to say that there aren't some positive reviews out there, but when the score is sitting at a mixed review score from 119 critic reviews, it tends to indicate that the general consensus is that this game's kind of meh. While I've seen the combat, the magic parkour, and the variety of spells get complimented, just about everything else critics seem to think is pretty mid. Generally, the consensus is that for a game that has such an imaginative concept, it's a rather unimaginative game, not aided by less than stellar writing that was apparent long before the game launched. Looking at Steam, the review scores are mixed here as well. 63% recent reviews, and across the board 59% from 3,200 reviews. And it's not just critically where the game hasn't been performing well. Commercially, it seems pretty apparent that Forspoken was a flop, not only because Square Enix doesn't seem interested in disclosing sales figures for the title, but there's plenty of indication, like what Benji Sales pointed out here, very impressed by Hi-Fi Rush, as this chart is ranked by revenue and Hi-Fi Rush is only $30. Referring to Steam's chart that indicates how much revenue a game earned, Hi-Fi Rush at $30 actually made more revenue launch week than Forspoken did at $70. Pretty shocking, especially with a shadow drop. Hi-Fi Rush has to sell more than twice the units to be able to match Forspoken's revenue, $30 versus $70. And despite Hi-Fi Rush having received little to no marketing except for the Xbox stream where the game was announced and then immediately dropped right after, not only does all of that indicate that Hi-Fi Rush did fairly well, but it also highlights just how poorly Forspoken did commercially. The end result is that just a month after Forspoken's launch, Luminous Productions, the development studio behind Forspoken and a subsidiary of Square Enix, has announced that the studio will be essentially dissolving. While technically Luminous Productions is being merged into Square Enix as a whole, what's really happening here is that Luminous Productions as an individual development studio is getting shuttered. It reads right here, an update from Luminous Productions. You may have heard the news that Luminous Productions is merging with Square Enix. Beginning on May 1st, our talented team will join Square Enix to deliver new, innovative gaming experiences to players across the globe. So the studio hasn't been dissolved yet. Officially, the merger will happen on May 1st, but that's still just a little over 4 months after Forspoken's launch. It must have flopped pretty hard if Square Enix was so fast to make this decision to dissolve Luminous Productions and merge them into Square Enix. Now, before the merger happens, Luminous Productions will be working on some things up until May 1st, stating here that between now and then, we remain entirely focused on Forspoken. We're currently working on the previously announced patch to address overall game performance. Performance was one of the issues that a number of reviewers and critics brought up. We will deliver an update soon, says this post here, and the DLC in Tanta We Trust is on track for release this summer. I don't know how many people are really going to buy that, and I'm wondering whether the effort is worth it, but they do have a commitment to people who bought the digital deluxe edition that grants those folks early access to the prequel DLC. So the DLC is something of an obligation rather than something that they hope will turn things around for Forspoken. I don't think it's something that Square Enix expects to make a profit out of. They just kind of have to get this out there because it was something that they promised. The statement concludes with, when we established Luminous Productions in 2018, our vision was to make AAA games that fuse technology and artistry to deliver completely new play experiences. Well, unfortunately, the fact that Forspoken really didn't feel like a new experience, its cool combat aside, the fact that it felt like such a box standard, generic, and kind of soulless feeling open world game with checklists, that's one of the big cruxes of that game that I think garnered it such low critic review scores. It really didn't feel like Forspoken pushed boundaries in any significant way. Having the chance to do just that has been a dream come true. We appreciate appreciate you taking this journey with us and look forward to continuing to create new entertainment and experiences as a part of the Square Enix family. Sincerely, the Luminous Productions team. Now, the fact that it's a merger hopefully means that people won't be losing their jobs and that everyone will find a place within Square Enix and will be able to contribute to hopefully more fruitful game development projects down the line. But as of right now, yeah, Luminous Productions' endeavors just didn't pan out, and Square Enix doesn't seem to have the patience to let Luminous Productions have one more go at a major AAA game development project. Now, Square Enix itself also released a PR statement on their official website, which reads, Square Enix announces that it'll merge its wholly owned subsidiary Luminous Productions into its wholly owned subsidiary Square Enix, effective Monday, May 1st, 2023. The merger is part of the company's efforts to further bolster the competitive prowess of the group's development studios, a goal set forth under its current medium-term business strategy. Square Enix has developed numerous AAA high-definition games and possesses a wealth of intellectual property and content. Luminous Productions is, meanwhile, equipped not only with AAA title development capabilities, but also technical expertise in areas such as game engine development. Combining the two entities will further enhance the group's ability to develop HD games. Square Enix is obviously trying to spin a positive light on all of this, that this is all part of the plan to make sure that Square Enix as a whole is stronger for it because they can use Luminous Productions' development experience to bolster their other projects. But I think it's fair to say that a big part of why this merger is happening is because Forspoken disappointed critically and financially so badly. Like, I would bet that if Forspoken was a massive hit critically and commercially, we would not be seeing this announcement. Luminous Productions would be working on their next major project, and Luminous Productions as a development studio would continue to exist instead of being merged into Square Enix as a whole. I'm not saying that this merger won't help Square Enix develop its other AAA games. All I'm saying is that I don't think Square Enix is painting the full picture here. They don't talk about Forspoken's critical and commercial performance and the potential influence that had on this decision. Now, for those who don't know, once upon a time, Luminous Productions was known as Business Division 2. This is the development studio that created Final Fantasy 15, which ran on the Luminous engine. That was a game that once upon a time was known as Final Fantasy Versus 13, and it'd be like a 10-year-long development cycle before we'd see the game come out as Final Fantasy 15. And while the game is not bad by any means, when it comes to the fanfare surrounding it from Final Fantasy fans, there are definitely arguments on numerous sides of the fence. It's not as universally beloved as some of the best Final Fantasy games out there. Again, not to say it's a bad game, just people certainly had varying thoughts about it. Now, Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy. I mean, this game is known far and wide. With Forspoken, this was Luminous Productions' chance to prove that with a brand new IP, they're still able to create a successful and popular and critically acclaimed new AAA game and series, but this was something that they were not able to accomplish with Forspoken, so it seemed as though Square Enix has lost faith in Luminous Productions. I'd be very curious to see Forspoken's sales figures and the total revenue that it made, and compare that to the budget behind this game. I imagine this was an expensive game to make. I can't imagine Square Enix is thrilled to talk about those sales figures and revenue figures. When a game is a massive hit, companies will usually tout sales numbers days after launch if the game accomplishes, multi-million sales figures within the launch week or the launch month or whatever. It's stuff that they'll put out there and advertise and be like, look how great our game did. The fact that Square Enix isn't doing that with Forspoken and they've been so shy to speak about its commercial performance really says a lot. So yeah, Forspoken launched unceremoniously, and it seemed as though the IP, the series, will kind of be dying off unceremoniously. I cannot imagine that a sequel will be made, given that the Forspoken name, I think, has been stained on some level because its first entry was so divisive. There's just such negative PR surrounding Forspoken because it feels like such a bland open world game, and because the writing kind of gained meme status. So I imagine this is not a series that will be touched again, or at the very least in the near-term future. I'd be surprised if even in the long-term future Forspoken was revisited. I get the sense that this is basically a dead IP. At the very least, if the game had made its money back and then some despite mixed reception, then there would be a possibility for a Forspoken 2, a sequel that could improve upon the foundations of the first game. Again, Hi-Fi Rush, a shadow-dropped game that was sold at $30, revenue-wise outperformed Forspoken, a $70 heavily marketed AAA game during their respective launch weeks. And then beyond that, looking at websites like SteamDB that relay concurrent player numbers, seeing the all-time peak at only 12,579 players. And then beyond that, on Steam itself, seeing that only a little over 3,000 people have left reviews for it. And the fact that on Metacritic, only 1,300 people decided to review this game, and this is, again, a pretty high-profile title, is pretty indicative of what is likely very underwhelming commercial performance. So yeah, this is the ultimate fate of Forspoken and its development studio, Luminous Productions, Once Upon a Time Business Division 2. Just really unceremonious across the board. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is everything you need to know about the latest surrounding Forspoken and Luminous Productions. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on these developments and the way Square Enix has dissolved the studio just so quickly after Forspoken's launch. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.